All right, today I'm going to show you how to adapt this toy and create a plugin like this guy has already been done, so you can attach a switch to it. First, on every toy, it'll have a press here button. So find where that is, and then you want to find a seam, preferably in an inconspicuous spot, so for aesthetic reasons, so you can sew it up after you're done cutting it. But for this Minnie Mouse, we're going to cut right along this seam near where the switch is. So you want to cut an incision about that big, and then you are going to feel around until you find the two wires that are coming from the button. Sometimes they're colored, which makes life easier, but this one, they're just two white wires, if you can see that. So what you're going to do then is grab wire cutters and snip them. The two wires that go to the button you can just shove back in there because you won't be needing those. The other side you're going to need. Then all you need to do is get your wire strippers and strip the two wires. You don't need a ton of wire showing, but you need enough that you can get a good connection. So I always strip more than I probably need because you can always cut the end off to shorten it. So you do that, and since each wire is made of a bunch of tiny wires, it also helps if you twist the ends of them to form one more cohesive wire. Once you have those two wires stripped, you can grab the female end of your mono cable, and you need to strip the opposite end of it. And once again, I would strip away about the same amount that you stripped on the two wires in your toy. And these wires are going to be separated into a bunch of tiny wires and then one white wire that you'll also need to strip later, so it'll kind of be frayed like that. You can see that. You want to twist all those separate wires together. And then when you strip that white wire right there, don't strip it all the way down to the base, because if these two wires touch at any point, then that'll cause a problem in your circuit. So I always strip a little bit less. Right up there. And honestly, that's probably too much stripped, but it'll be fine. So then all you need to do is you are going to solder one wire to one of the wires you stripped from the toy, and then the other wire to the other. So what I do is I twist the wires together before I solder them. It just makes your life easier when you start to solder. And I also do one wire at a time. That way you don't have to worry about trying to keep both wires perfectly twisted around. Then grab this cool clamp thing. Get it up. And I use this to hold the wire steady while I solder. You can also use a second person, that's also helpful. Put that down so you can see that. So I then take the solder and just put it behind the soldering gun behind the wires. Just move it from one side of the open wire down to the end. And you don't need a ton of solder to make a good connection. And after that one's done, then you let it cool. Grab the second one. And twist together these wires. All right, so once you find, to get the right angle with this guy, this wire is pretty short. And for the second wire, you just do the same thing with the first one. I start the solder at the top, and once it's heated up, I just bring it down to the bottom of the wire. And that should give you a fairly good connection. Then you should be good. But your final thing should look like that, with the 2 wires from your female end of your monocable cord soldered to the 2 wires that go back into the battery pack and the motor of the toy. And then all you gotta do is kind of, oh, one other thing, you can cover those connections if you're worried about either them touching, or if you are worried about them breaking, you can cover them in electric tape, but you don't need to cover them in electric tape. I'm not going to, because I don't know where electric tape is right now. Anyways, then you shove that back in, and ultimately you can sew that or hot melt that cut that you made in the toy so it looks nice, and you should be good. Okay, so then when you're done, you have the wires tucked in, and you can pretend that that's sewed up nicely so the kids can't tell we cut it open. Then you grab your switch that you made, and you plug it in. Make sure that the toy's turned on also, because mine wasn't turned on at first and I thought it was broken, but it's not, because it works.